Oh, Skyblock, it's been a while, hasn't it? Remember back in August whenever I spent 117 hours farming pumpkins to get farming 50? Well, I never stopped. I was so used to farming pumpkins, whenever I finally reached farming 50, it felt almost incorrect that I stop. To the casual observer, I probably have Stockholm Syndrome, but in my eyes, I saw limits to push. Actually, it was more like, wouldn't it be funny if the number went higher? Yeah, it would, but real quick, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. This video's been in the works for over 2 months and it's the only way I'll feel validated, so do it! So, after I hit farming 50, I realized that had already put me in the top 1,000 farmers. There is a leaderboard that's actually built into the server, but it doesn't give a list of names or XP. Needless to say, Minecraft wasn't gonna cut it. I had to consult the Chrome. I ended up finding a lot of forum posts where people tried to manually keep track of the leaderboards, which obviously wasn't the most reliable source since most of them died or were outdated. And at that point, I thought there was no publicly released leaderboards for me, so as a last resort, I went to Skyblock. Skyblock is a website you can use to view the stats of any Skyblock player who has their API on. And since it seemed like the only option, I had planned to manually look for the #1 farmer through Skyblock. I also found this funny link up here called mattdoes.dev, so obviously the first thing I'm gonna do is click on it. And jackpot. This website knows everything about every player. It's like if Skyblock had a Facebook database leak. But among all was exactly what I was looking for, the farming leaderboards. By the time I found this out, the leaderboards were surprisingly low, which is actually what pushed me to get onto them. Except for, that. That is an admin. All of their stats were cheated in, so we're just gonna not count them in, just a little disclaimer. Getting into the top 50 on this website only took 10 million XP, and I thought, well, I've already farmed 55 million XP, so I can just do that again. So I decided to get on a bit of a grind, and at this point I wasn't completely no-lifing pumpkins, so it took me about an entire week to get another 10 million XP. But I soon noticed a flaw whenever getting myself up in the ranks. The website only ranks players who have their API on, which means there were even more people ahead of me. So whenever I was top 50 on the website, I was actually only around top 90 whenever including players who had their API off. This led to a spike in demotivation, because if there were people with their API off in the top 50, they could be anywhere on the list and I'd never know. But in a game that's basically nothing but grinding, being in the top 100 wasn't something I was going to complain about. So I kept going. I farmed for a few days before something crossed my mind. If Minikloon doesn't count as the #1 farmer because he blatantly cheated in his XP, then what crazy person does? Allow me to introduce to you Queper, who at the time was the #1 farmer in Skyblock, at least to the best of the community's knowledge. Queper was one of the only publicly ranked people who had gotten farming 50 twice, and then some. He had an obvious lead of over 20 million XP, but his lead is what kept me determined because it gave me a much more solid goal to work towards. The first thing I needed to do was to get farming 50. Again, because farming 50 takes 55.1 million XP, and if I were to get that, I would be nearing Queper's tail. But the end goal I set for myself was to reach 100 million XP, because that's the amount of XP I assumed Queper would have by the time I caught up to him. But of course, the stalking doesn't stop there. The second reasonable thing I did was go to Queper's Island to investigate for myself. You know, he's got a prison on his island, pretty standard stuff, prison, but you go out here and you can see where all the madness is revealed. Now, sugarcane actually isn't even that good for XP, but I mean, of course, he doesn't have a lair, he has a few. I'm eventually gonna want to wait until Queper himself is on the island so I can see what he farms and how he does it, but at the moment it looks like just his alt is on his island. I mean, Captain Queper, who else could that be? I actually wasn't able to catch Queper online for several days and eventually decided to check out a Skyblock where I found some interesting info. Queper wasn't dedicated to farming pumpkins and pumpkins only because he actually plays the game and farms other things too. By tracking his collections for about a week, it seems he was farming nothing but potatoes, which give an incredibly low amount of farming XP. I also noted that his melon collection had gone up, but that's because he had 24 melon minions, so at least he wasn't farming them manually. Since the Q was not no life in the game, and whenever he farmed potatoes, it was a better time than ever to get to work. Earlier, whenever I first made it to the top 50 on the website, I had around 10 million XP and was ranked 93 in-game. But it took another 30 million XP before I made it to the actual top 50. And this progress was only 2 weeks in from where I started, so things were going by fast. As a matter of fact, things only went by faster thanks to the Skyblock Community Center update, because now you can buy God Potions which give you literally every effect for 24 hours including a farming XP boost, along with the new cookie buff which lasts for 4 days and gives a 20% skill XP boost. Pumpkins now have a max XP yield of 10.1 per pumpkin as opposed to the previous 8.4. So basically, getting up on the leaderboards is going to be 20% quicker. Anyways, I was eventually able to catch Queper on his island. I didn't record any of it, but I found out he had a Reddit because I asked for a screenie. An old post of his suggested that there might still be scripters on the leaderboard bringing the ranks down. But it's been 2 months, Hypixel's probably taking care of the majority of them. They still could be there, but what does it matter when the man outdoes the machine? In the same post, he mentions that he is ranked 25 in farming XP, but 1 month later, in a different post, he mentions that he is ranked 7. So I now knew that the number 1 farmer with proof was actually number 7 in-game, which means getting to the top in-game wasn't too unreasonable. This is the point where I started putting more hours into this game than I ever have before. Like early on whenever I was just getting into the leaderboards, I would spend maybe 4 to 6 hours a day, which would get me around 2 to 3 million XP. Since pumpkins now give more XP than they used to, I had to retime all of my calculations. And as I was timing myself, I found out that 1 million farming XP conveniently takes around 2 hours, which will make calculating the time very easy. Using all of my downtime possible, I was putting 8 to 10 hours a day, which was getting me around 4 to 5 million XP. And after keeping up that same progress and no-lifing the game for a week straight, I was able to creep up to 3rd place. But what's really important is I got that Blaze Pet leveled up. You guys remember that Blaze Pet someone gave to me whenever I started farming? There we go. Level 99 Epic Blaze. That took so long because I never had it as my main pet. I always just had it use the XP share. But there it is, 10 million coins. Hell yeah. I knew at this point I was only a week of no-lifing away before I passed Queper, and with the support of my friends I was ready to go. Hey Zai, why are you doing this? That's a good question, but you know what's a better question? Why don't they have a YouTube Plus rank? Imagine you can have YouTube rank and flex your plus sign color. After filling my inventory with countless amounts of enchanted pumpkins, I was finally able to dethrone Queper.
Let me grab that actually.
It probably didn't seem like it, but I felt amazing to finally take that spot and achieve a useless number bigger than anybody else had. The next morning, Queper took notice of my spot. He was aware I was going to pass him an XP, but whenever I did, he was really cool about it. When I inevitably got back onto Skyblock that morning, he messaged me congratulating me on it. He even showed it off on his Reddit. Hats off to Queper for being so supportive. So I thought that was it. I was only gonna grind to solidify my spot and maybe go up a rank, but then I remembered something. Queper was still number 7 on the in-game leaderboards whenever I passed him, so I took that spot, but that also meant there were multiple unknown people ahead of me. And what do you know, I don't even get to have my number 1 spot for a day before someone ahead of me turns their API on. And that someone's name is Schabi. I think that's how it's pronounced. Queper was actually the one that brought this to my attention, and he mentioned that Schabi was around 15 million XP ahead of us. And he wasn't kidding. So the next day, I ended up pulling off the longest grind I ever have in Skyblock. Since I hadn't reached my goal of 100 million XP, I started farming at 4 PM and ended at 10 AM, totaling 16 hours. I started at 92 million XP and ended at 99 million XP, saving the 100 million XP milestone for the stream next day. I don't have any special thing planned, I was just gonna kinda break this pumpkin. Bonk. Spot. Yay, easy peasy. So all that was left was to grind the rest of the way there, and I did just that with unethical intentions. I kept farming without even considering the fact that the same situation with Queper could happen with Schabi. There could be someone ahead of Schabi doing the same thing, keeping their API off until someone competes with them. But my mind soon changed after I farmed another 10 million XP or so, because my rank went up 3 times, leaving me at number 4 on the in-game leaderboards. And finally, whenever I was just a few million XP behind Schabi, I made it to number 3, which means Schabi was the number 1 farmer. I mean, technically Schabi has the number 2 spot, but that's because Minikloon has the number 1 spot, but he doesn't count. Then the day finally came. I now knew I could become the true number 1 farmer in Skyblock. Skyliamo had a reliable Discord bot that would track XP and ranks faster than any other website. And there it was, Hundreds of hours of work had gone into this to achieve a position that nobody cared about. And luckily, Schabi was cool about it too. He's a really nice guy. Even then, getting to this point has taught me more about my limits than ever before, and how they're still not broken because I still kept farming. It also brought me to taming 50, so those were some free points for my skill average, I guess. I'm also number 3 in pumpkins, so that's a thing. Quick little side note, I've been tracking how long this has taken total in hours by counting the amount of god potions I've drank. And throughout all of the pumpkin farming, I've gone through 10 god potions, and since they only count down when you're online, I've spent around 240 hours straight of pumpkin farming. And if you include the time it took to get farming 50 in the first place, we're talking about 360 hours to get first place. I am a productive human being. Nah, I'm just kidding. The real reason anybody would ever do this is for those sweet, sweet macro accusations. But seriously, Zai, why did you do this? Well, I don't know. Even early on, I've always wanted a number 1 spot in this game, just as an arbitrary goal to work towards. So going for number 1 is an incredible way to prove your dedication, but that's it. Anyways, I think that will finally end this project that's been in the work for the past few months. I really hope you enjoyed this video that I actually put work into, and if you did, be sure to subscribe, Channel Analytics.